Hi, I'm Ginny. I've been painting for over 40 years and I use the wet into wet or alla prima method, and I want to share with you what I have learned. You can oil paint too, so let's have some fun. This is a painting I call Floral Fantasy. It is actually a Nick Hankins design. He gave me permission to paint this and teach this years ago. So I have my canvas prepared. I've got a white canvas and I've transferred my pattern onto the canvas with a white transfer paper or black transfer paper. I have a YouTube video of how to do that if you need help with that. I like to paint wet into wet, so I'm going to use a medium on my canvas, and to put that on there I simply take a small chip brush and I put a good amount on there, just dot it all over the canvas. I noticed that this particular canvas really soaks up this medium. I haven't added any additional gesso to the canvas, and if you find your canvas soaking up your medium, you can start off by adding an additional coat of gesso, white gesso to the canvas. And I've even painted this particular painting on a black canvas, gessoed it with black first. So that is something that you can do. It makes for a darker painting, which is kind of helpful if you have a lot of dark areas. This particular painting has a couple of dark areas, but I wanted to try it on a little bit lighter canvas, just so I could keep it a little brighter, a little lighter. So I just dotted this all over my canvas. I'm going to go back and forth, up and down, just to make sure that it's evenly coated. Now, if I get too much on here, I can always take it off, and I do that with a paper towel. I just set the paper towel on the canvas like this, and I go over it, letting the paper towel soak up excess medium. I want the medium to be very thin, very even coat. The reason I do this is so that it allows me to use less paint. It allows me to have mix colors right on the canvas, and makes painting easier. Like I said, you don't have to do this. You could actually add your medium. A lot of artists add their medium to their paint, to their on their brush as they go. So you can do it either way. I just prefer adding it to my canvas to start with. I feel like it's one less step, one less thing that I have to worry about as I'm painting. Now I'm going to start in my background. Let's look at my colors. I've got titanium white, cad red, cad yellow, cad red, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna. I've got some phthalo blue, sap green, and ivory black. I think this was Midnight Black, Bob Ross's Midnight Black, which has a little blue in it, which is kind of cool to have at times. Okay, I'm going to start in the background. I'm going to use a 3/4 inch flat brush, and I'm going to pick up a little bit of burnt sienna with a little bit of black on it. I think this is Bob Ross's dark sienna that I'm using here. So I just want to start in the background. A little bit of burnt sienna. Touch of black in that burnt sienna. Lets it be a little darker. I'm going to keep the edges of my painting fairly dark. If I find my paint looking too watercolory, too loose, I'll just soak up some of that medium. Now I'm going to go to a little bit of cad red and cad yellow mix. I'm going to add that right into my dark here. So I want to start bringing some light in back behind here. A little bright spark of light back here. I'm going right over my pattern. This paint is transparent enough that I will be able to see that. Still see my pattern there. Add a little white to it. Makes it a little less transparent. Now don't worry about all those brush strokes. I'll show you how to get rid of those here in just a minute. Light right around the edges of my painting, now, or my flower. Now note that I am going right over the pattern. If you don't do this, you'll find yourself having to go back and touch up and add paint in and around your petals and your leaves. So do yourself a favor and go ahead and let that color go right over top of the pattern. As I get down here on this left hand side, I'm going to take a little bit of cad yellow and my Prussian blue, maybe a touch of sap green. I'm going to brighten this area up right in here. Again, I think too much medium. I'm looking for a little bit of a kind of a teal color. Too bright. Let me lighten this up just a little bit. A little bit more blue. And I'm just doing brush mixes. Okay, just mixing these colors right on my brush. Yeah, a little bit of more Prussian blue and yellow, cad yellow in there. Right in there. Now you can make this as bright or as dull as you want. I'm just gonna make it a little bit lighter. Now I'm going to go back with my burnt sienna and I'm going to mix that right into the bottom because I want this bottom corner to be darker. Let that mix right in with that green, that teal color right there. Fade off up into this area. Again, I want this area over here to be dark. All I'm doing is going around the outside edges of my painting. Filling in some areas that I know are going to be in the background. Going right up over my edges of my petals and my leaves. I want you to remain very loose strokes. Don't try to paint this all solid. We're not painting a wall. We just want a little bit of action, texture in the background. Then I'm going to take my mop. This is a mop brush, very soft bristles on this, and I'm going to very gently go up here, just using the very tip of the brush. I'm going to go up here and just soften soften the edges of the different colors together. Now I'm not painting with this, and I'm not trying to smooth this all into one color. I want the different variations of color up there. See those? That's going to give the impression of something going on there in the background. Maybe it's background leaves. Maybe there's more flowers hiding back in there. But if I take this brush and just soften the edges, get rid of any major brush strokes, soften the edges all the way around here, what it does is it pushes that background farther back. Soft edges recede, remember? Soft edges recede, hard edges come forward. So by softening those edges, I can really add a little bit more blue into that. I think it's a little too green. More yellow maybe down in here. Okay, I can change that color anytime I want, but anyway, I'm just really softening the edges between the colors. Now I know that, now every time I go back to get clean color, I wipe my brush off. There's a lot of paper towels. Now I know right up here, in this area right here, I know I'm going to want that to be nice and bright. I'm going to go try to get some clean yellow and white, cad yellow and white right in here. I'll brighten that up just a little bit. My yellow is a little green, but that's okay. Again, I'm trying for loose strokes that just give the idea of some texture or something happening back there. Right now it kind of looks like there's a lot of leafy action going on right in that area, and I like that. I'm going to leave that. Leave that alone. Sometimes things just happen and you just got to go with the flow. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mix up sap green. I'll take some sap green, pretty good amount. This is going to be for my leaves, and black. And I want a very, very dark green. Sap green and black, about equal amounts of each. See, very dark. This is going to be the underpainting of my leaves. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to go up here. I'm going to find my leaves and just kind of stroke in those leaf shapes. Now, I'm not trying to stay in the lines. I'm actually letting the leaf be a little bit bigger than the line. I'm not worried about those lines. People start worrying about the lines, and it has to be perfectly in the lines. I think that we get that from when we were kids and we were told to color within the lines. And I want you to get over that, okay? We don't have to color within the lines. This dark green here goes back behind these leaves, so that's why I put that in there like that. There's a little leaf right here. There's some leaves right here. And I'm just loosely putting those leaves in there, filling out that dark green. Letting it flow back in there. There's a couple right here. There's a bigger one right in here maybe. See how easy my paint flows on there with that medium on there? I like that. There's a big leaf right there. There's a couple of petals right in here, or little rosebuds right in here, but behind that is another leaf. So I'm just going to put in the idea of another leaf right there, and I'll leave those little petals, little rosebuds go for now. Now I've got a couple of leaves that are kind of a little thin versions. Now what I do is I get some paint in my brush, I go up here and I start right at the tip, I push my brush, and then as I come to the top of the leaf I just pull up on the brush. So I'm starting with the chiseled edge down, push, okay, let up, and then I can push some more, and then I can turn and twist, and I get that nice little longer shape leaf in there. There are a couple. Now there's a bud that comes off the top, and I'm going to do a stem. Now to do a stem, I'm going to get my brush, lots of paint in my brush, so that I end up with a chiseled point, and then I can take that chiseled edge and I can just do a real thin line there, and I can then push a couple of leaves in there, just pushing down on that brush. There's going to be some more down here, but we'll do those with a smaller brush. Okay, so that quick, we've got some leaf shapes in there. I'm going to wipe my brush out, and I'm going to make a mix of color for my highlight on my leaves. Okay, I've made up a light green mix with sap green and cad yellow. A lot more cad yellow than sap green. See, I want that to show up against those darker leaves over there. So it has to be nice and light. Wipe my palette knife off using the same size brush. I'm going to get a little bit of color right on the tip of my brush, and I want you to watch. I'm going to go in close on this, but I'm going to show you. I'm pushing down, and as I come into the center of the leaf, I'm pulling my brush away from the canvas, and that's going to give me a nice little impression of a highlight on the outside edge, leaving the dark in the center. I'm going to go up here and look for leaves. I have to think about where's the light coming from. Well, the light is kind of coming from the top and right, so I know that the leaves up here are going to have the right side is going to be lighter. I can also decide at this point if I want highlights on my leaves. I'm going to add some lowlights or shades of different colors on my leaves so that I can, there's a leaf shape back in here. I can also decide at this point if I want this leaf to be over the top of this leaf or vice versa. So I can kind of look and see what leaf is going to be on top. And I'm not going to be too uniform with these. because I know that I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to add some low lights, but I am going to kind of look at the brightness of some of these leaves down in here. Maybe there's a little light coming in on the tips of these leaves down here, but they're also going to be, some of these are going to be in the dark, so in a darker area, so I'm not going to worry too much about them. A little bit. I can add a touch of highlight on these leaves here. Just kind of think about maybe the edge here is a little lighter. Maybe this edge is a little lighter. Okay, now to get the low lights, what I call low lights, I'm going to take white into my phthalo blue, and I'm going to use that color to kind of give me, look at these leaves down here and say these are going to be underneath of these petals here. So I'm going to add a little bit of a low light, low dark highlight. It's just phthalo blue and white. Really just gives a little bit more detail. This little guy here is, maybe this edge up here is a little brighter than this edge, but in the center there, always try to go from the outside edge in. See, the outside edge in. Leaving that dark in the center. There's a dark area in the center of that leaf. I'm going to leave that. A little extra highlight here and there. Grab a little bit of cad yellow on my, right on the tip of my brush. See right there, up here, and give a little more of a flip on some of these outside edges. And then maybe with a little bit more blue and white, I can do a little bit of a brighter highlight, but it's in the shadows. It's kind of a brighter low light, I guess you would call it. And let that leaf flip right over the top. Let that one go be in the background there. See, it just gives it a little bit more interest, a little bit more detail. All right, now let's go and work on this little bud up here. I'm going to start out, I'm going to switch to a smaller brush. This is just a number 8 filbert, I think. Yeah, number 8 filbert. And I'm just going to fill this in with some dark red, which is, I'm using alizarin crimson. Is going to be my dark. I've got 2 little buds right here. I just fill those in right there. Then I'm going to take just a little bit of straight cad red, and I'm just going to go up here and highlight. Think of it as the petal that comes over the top right there. Same thing right there, just a touch. These guys are not the stars of the show, but they add a little interest. Go back to my dark green. I can get a few little petals on there. Maybe there's a bigger leaf right here. I don't know, there's something in there. I can't see the pattern anymore, but that's all right. We'll just put a leaf there. It's going to be dark back in here right now. We're going to have a petal that comes right up to there, so I'm not going to worry about it. Okay, this right here, a little dark on that side. Little tiny, maybe there's a little tiny leaves on the outside edge of this bud. Right there, little tiny twist of a leaf up there. Again, brighter. Brighter highlights on those. Okay, now we're going to start laying in our big flower, and I'm going to start off with alizarin crimson, and I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit of black just to darken my alizarin crimson just a touch. So right in here, I'm going to start right in the center where it's nice and dark. I want this to be dark, and all I'm doing is I'm going to pull these colors out into the petals. There's a petal that's shaped kind of like that right there. I can see that big petal, but all I'm doing is I'm just kind of pulling this out into the main part of the petal. Got a little dark. I'm going to start. I want to make sure this is nice and dark right here, and this goes kind of up like this. Pulling it out. There's a dark edge right here. Whoops. Picked up too much paint there. There's a dark edge right here. There's a dark edge, remember, right next to our green right there. We're going to have that be nice and dark. It kind of comes out this way. We're just pulling our paint in the direction that the petal would be. The petal attaches to the center right down in here. So I'm pulling out from the center out to the outer edge. There's some dark right in here. Just going to go ahead and give myself a little dark right there. Then this is dark. Dark inner area right there that goes out. This edge right here goes out nice and dark. Then right up here, there's an edge of this petal that's kind of behind this one. So I'm going to put some dark in up there. There's a dark section down here on the bottom of this petal right here is a little darker. A little bit of dark right along the outside edge there. Letting it go right into my green. That's okay. Pull that color right in. Brush strokes going in the direction of the flower. Okay, I'm going to wipe my brush, and next I'm going to go back with a little bit of cad red with a tiny bit of alizarin crimson in it, and I'm going to start on the outside edge, and I'm going to pull that down into the flower. I'm not trying to meet that or mix with it yet. I'm just adding this outside edge, pulling it down into the flower. I know there's a lighter petal edge right here that goes all the way down into the flower. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in. There's another one right over here that comes over the top of this petal, so it's going to be lighter all the way down to the center. Then these edges back here, I'm just going to pull it down. Outside edge down into this darker part here. I don't care about meeting it up yet or anything. I'm just getting in this color. This area right here, very bright. I'm going to pull it down. To meet this color down in here. But I'm not going to quite mix it or meet yet. I'm just getting those colors in there. This outside edge goes in. See, again, I'm really concentrating on the direction of the stroke and how it's going to go into that center. This outside edge in. Go ahead and touch that green. Don't try to keep a white line around it or keep it from touching. As you pull that in, it's going to help that edge look more part of the flower or part of the background, and gives it a little bit of a feathery, a light feeling. And we want that. Again, I'm trying to stay aware of how this petal would come up and then go into that center. Now, once I have my basic colors in there, I can go back where I have these areas of light and dark, and I can kind of pull them into each other. Okay, just using the corner of my brush, gently pulling the dark out and the light in, just to kind of meet with each other. This is kind of a little dip in the dark, then this gets pulled down into that. Okay, so that's the basic shape. I'll go back and restate this edge right here that goes down into see, and this goes down in there. It's those back petals coming down. This back petal again, a little brighter color going down in there. Now, I'm going to go back, before I do anything else, I'm going to go back and I'm going to restate my dark area because I think, you know, as I was working in here, I pulled too much of that out, and just go in there and pull that back out. A bit of black, a little bit of alizarin crimson. Keeping in mind that right here there's two petals that come together right there, so I can darken right behind that petal. Right here there's a petal that kind of flips over in that corner right there, so I can darken this down here and give that a little bit of an edge right there, a little bit of an edge right there behind that one, because that petal flips over. I can take my mop and I can soften these colors together a little bit more. Gentle, gentle, no pressure, very, very little pressure on this. Just soften these colors together. That's all we're doing. Staying away from my edges. Okay. Now, I'm going to make a highlight color with cad yellow and white and alizarin crimson. Cad red. Cad red. So it's going to give me a light orange. I want this color to show up against that dark red up there. Light orange. And this is going to be my highlight color. Same brush, wipe it out. Like for instance, right here I know that this edge right here, I want this edge to be brighter. I'm just going to go in with my brighter orange color. And add a highlight. This edge here, maybe a little bit of a highlight along that edge right there. Maybe there's an edge, a little highlight right there. So I'm just looking for areas where I want these colors to be a little bit brighter. Right along this edge right here, maybe. This edge here can get a little brighter. It's important that you get this color bright enough that it stands out against all that cad red that we've got up there. So I know this edge right here needs to be a little brighter. As it comes down, this edge right here needs to be a little bit brighter. As it comes down into the center. bright up there. Right there. Right there on that tip. I'm using a little bit more paint, trying to leave some paint up there. Doesn't have to be, I want it to be a little thicker. Maybe a little flips here on these edges right there a little bit. There's little skirts of highlight where these petals have a little bit more flipping going on down in here. Tiny touch on this outside edge. Okay, we want to make sure that we don't lose our darks. And if you lose your dark, you can always go back and add it, but try not to lose the dark in here. Okay, so I can go back and restate, wipe my brush out real good, restate these dark areas, let them be dark. That's what's going to give us that shape, that form, is the lights and the darks. And you can pull that dark back out of that center there. Just like the brush strokes. Just soften them away. But the main thing is I want that dark in there. Right in there. Okay, now, once I have my lights and darks on there, I can go back with a liner brush, add a little medium to my liner brush. I'm just adding medium. Then I'm going to go over here to, I'll start out with a little bit of yellow ochre and burnt sienna to give me that little stamen. Here, just kind of bring it up. Out of the center there. Add a little white and yellow. Again, you might have to add more medium to your brush so that the paint comes off. Tiny bit of highlight as it comes up out of that center. Yellow ochre. Those little seed pod things right at the tip there. Highlight with some brighter color, little yellow, cat yellow and white. I'm going to look around, make sure I've got my pattern lines covered up, make sure my lights and darks are where I want them. Maybe that leaf has a little flip right there. It's kind of cool, right? I'm going to go back and add a little bit more highlight to this little rose up here. Take some of that orange that we made and add a touch right up there on the tip of that little guy, maybe a touch there. A little brighter highlight to that. This area right in here, cover up that leaf area just a little bit more right there. Maybe add a little highlight to those leaves. Highlight to these leaves up here, maybe. It would be a little light catching those little leaves right there, right? Okay, I think I'm going to call this one done. And I like to sign my paintings with a wipeout tool. Just use the edge of it and you just write your name right where there's paint. You can also use a liner brush for this. I just think it's easier to use a little wipeout tool. I hope you enjoyed painting this one with me, and I hope you come back and paint with me again. Bye now.